shit. Yeah! Look at that Gouda! Woo-hoo-hoo! Come on! Get it! Get it! Get it! Yeah! Finally got him! Just eye it. Whoa. All right, so let's talk Barracuda 101. Now, I'm out here on a flats fishing trip, and I'm fishing for pretty much anything that swims, whether it's a permit, a snook, a tarp, and a bonefish. I'd like to catch it, Barracuda included. So, Barracuda can live in a variety of habitats, but where you're going to find them primarily is going to be in these shallow water situations where you may be targeting other species, like poling along, and you might pick up a bonefish here or spot a permit tailing out there, and then all of a sudden a Barracuda shows up, and we'd like to equip ourselves to be able to do it. Now, one of the biggest problems with Barracuda in all the trips that I go on and host is oftentimes just the tackle. Like, how do we change from, you know, a Tarpon rig to a Barracuda rig without a bunch of hullabaloo? And I'm going to show you, in addition to some strategies, techniques, and things, I'm going to show you how I like to rig this up. So go ahead and check this out. Go ahead and come in a little bit closer, and I'm just going to show you. So this is a leader that I had that was on my tarpon rod, and we moved into a lagoon and there wasn't going to be any tarpon. And so really quickly, instead of changing out like a whole leader, what I'm able to do is I cut my tarpon fly off and just tied a perfection loop like that in there. Okay, so that's all that is. That's a perfection loop, and that's in 60-pound fluorocarbon. That's exactly what I was fishing for tarpon. And then what I have already set up is I've got a wire leader, about 20 inches of wire leader with a double surgeon's loop in there. I tend to find on the wire that the double surgeon's loop holds better, and this is a great product. We sell it at Red's. There's a link in the video description right there, and that's wire bite, and I like the 30-pound, and it ties easy. One thing you need to know about the wire bite is you need a good set of pliers to cut the wire bite with. You're not going to do it with your nippers, and I would avoid doing it with like your scissors. So what I've got here is this could live on my bag. All right, so I'm in the boat, I'm cruising around, and these are my extra flies. I just happen to have these ready for quick fly changes. Included is one of these right there. There's no chance of tarpon here, so I'm going to take this rod while my guide's getting up on the poling deck, and I'm just going to do a loop-to-loop connection. Okay, I'm going to take that wire, and I'm going to take my needlefish, and I've tied this loop the smallest I can get it, that I can still get my needlefish connection. Now we have a nice marriage between those two, and I found that to be adequately strong. Sometimes it's going to break somewhere, and I have seen that wire cut through there at times, but in general, it holds pretty good. And this wire is pretty abrasion resistant, and you can see the plastic coating is wore off there from some strikes that we had previously. And that there is one of my favorite flies. So that's a needlefish pattern. I believe it's called the Cuda snack. And when Barracuda eat, often their goal is to cut the fish in half. And so when a Barracuda comes up and pursues that, it's going to attempt to cut the fish in half. More often than not, if you only get them with one hook, it's the back. And that's just the way they eat that. And that second hook picks up a lot of fish. Now, in tying this fly on, I've left a little tag on there. That's okay. But we just do, in that knotted wire, a traditional non-slip mono loop. The coating of the wire has gotten a little bit shaved off there, so unfortunately it looks a little bit dirty in the video, but it's just a non-slip mono loop to help provide action. It's a nice tight little knot. All right, as far as fly choice goes for Barracuda, that Cuda snack right there is a great choice. They don't always want to eat that one. This fly is also pretty tough to cast because it has a wire body. This is another one that we sell at Red's. There's a link in the video description to all of our, recommended Barracuda flies. But that is another one that we like right there. That one just swims excellent. And then at times, especially if you ever find yourself blind casting for barracuda. I've done that a few times on cloudy days. A guide may know where there's an area where there could be barracuda. Poppers work great blind casting for barracuda as well, and I believe that's called a banger right there. Now, when it comes to lines and rod selection and that type of thing on the tackle, barracuda, they're a good fighting fish. They're not a long runner. They're not so powerful that you have to have a 10 weight to handle them. But casting these big rigs and these wire leaders and this tandem hook fly, casting this type of equipment into the wind does require a pretty stout rod, but it also requires just purely the line weight. So the fly line has to carry this wire and this big double hook fly through the wind. So I've just found a 10 weight line to be the most effective for me, but you could certainly catch them on an 8 weight or a 9 weight. It would just be a bugger to cast into the wind. So I'm going to jump up on the deck and I'm going to show you a couple of tricks I've learned over the years for how to get these barracuda to bite. So many times for barracuda, you might not be on the casting deck if you're fishing in a tandem group with a boat partner. A lot of times you might be the guy in the middle who's just kind of waiting his turn, and that's a great time to have your barracuda rod kind of out and relatively ready, and then discuss with your fishing partner what's going to happen in the event a barracuda gets spotted. Typically the person on the deck's probably going to be looking for a bonefish or a permit or something or a snook, and you'll need to do a little switcheroo. So that's a good little discussion to have with your fishing partner. So let's just say we've spotted barracuda, and either I put the rod down that my target species was for, and now I've slid my barracuda rod out of the holder and I'm up on the deck and I'm ready to make this happen right here. So with barracuda, typically they're going to be sitting stationary. They're an ambush predator. They're incredibly fast. When they attack, your eye has a hard time even following the fish. They move at lightning speed. But typically they're going to be laid up, and what we're going to do is we're going to try to cast, one bit of communication with your guide is sometimes with barracuda being down here, I can't tell which direction the fish is facing. So I make sure to confirm with my guide, hey, is the fish facing left or right? And the guides are great. They're going to tell you, yeah, he's facing to the left. So I know where I'm about to go. The other tip is just general flats tips is like if I can't see the fish clearly, I'm going to point my rod out and say, where from there? And the guide's going to say left, 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 and then give me an approximate distance. So very important to know, barracuda typically aren't moving fast. The only bit of urgency is often the boat might be adrift. Either you're pulling or the wind is blowing like crazy like it is right now. And I'm going to have my line out and I'm going to have my line ready, and I'm going to take and I'm going to make this cast, and I'm going to cast about 6 feet from the fish, and I'm going to be ready to strip immediately. So my hand is already into the strip. Now barracuda, they want a fast strip, but it's important with barracuda to understand that the retrieve should get faster as the fish gets closer. Prey gets more and more scared the closer that big set of jaws and teeth get to it. So let's do this again. I'm going to do my best to make a nice cast. Try to set the fly down relatively soft. I'm into my strip. Okay, I see the fish coming, and I'm going to speed up like that right there. And now, a lot of times that fish is going to eat it just immediately. Okay, and that's great. Then we're going to strip strike them. We're going to try not to get too possessive. We're going to bring that rod butt right to our stomach like so that prevents us from lifting it because it's so awkward. And hopefully that barracuda takes off and it jumps and goes crazy out there, and it's very exciting. I'm going to give you one little pro tip. Okay, if you're in a situation where you've had a couple of these barracuda during the course of a week or a trip come up and follow right to the boat, and they follow it, and they get right to the boat, and they see the boat, and they veer out, there's one little tip I'm going to give you that has come in really handy in Ascension Bay, Mexico for me. Those barracuda, there's big ones, there's plenty of them, but man, they get pretty smart. And that is, let's say that fish is coming, and I get to about 20 feet, and I just don't feel like that fish is going to eat. I'm going to take that fly away from him, throw it back here. That fish is going to circle around looking for that bait, and then I'm going to take and I'm going to go back at him again just like that right there. And a lot of times the second that fly hits the water on the second attempt, it inhales it. And I found that to work extremely well for me. It takes a bit of courage to pull it away from the fish, but once that fish gets within this 10 to 15 foot range, it's very, very rare for him to not see the boat and continue eating. The other kiss of death here is going to be when you're stripping and you get to here try to resist the temptation of jigging with your rod tip. That makes a different sound, a different feeling. They see the rod tip move. Just go ahead, and if you're gonna commit to it and let that fish get close, just strip that fly right up near your rod tip, just like that. Just make sure that barracuda doesn't bite your rod tip off in the process. Okay, one of the other tips that I have for you is gonna be, and you should keep a clean workspace and keep your gear out of the way so your line doesn't get caught up on it like mine just did. The other tip I've got for you is there's gonna be situations where the barracuda is facing the wrong direction, meaning I don't really have maybe it's facing this way and I don't really have a shot over there because there's some branches in the way. Maybe it's near the mangroves, or maybe the wind is just so fierce, or the boat's pitching away. I can't get to the left side of it. So I learned this, I believe, in Lefty Cray's book on saltwater fly fishing, so I can't take credit for it. But I'm gonna throw out and I'm just gonna go, and I'm gonna make some noise about 10 to 15 feet behind the fish. And now I'm gonna watch, okay? This works, this works as long as you're patient with it. But a lot of times I've seen those fish just slowly start to turn because they can't help themselves. They've gotta turn around and look at what made that sound. Something tasty made that sound. After the fish has made its turn, assuming it made its turn, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna throw it 6 feet the side of the fish, come into it, strip like crazy, and hopefully I've turned that fish to a position, because barracuda typically don't just spin around and attack things. They're like a buzzsaw with a propeller. They just go one direction as fast as they can. It's incredible. The other thing that I get asked about with barracuda, and it's not a bad trick, I don't do it all that often unless I'm in a situation where I'm blind casting, is the two-hander strip. And that's a great way, because I can have a much faster retrieve rate, and I'm less likely to miss a strip and stop dead. So if you're in situations where you're blind casting a lot over some blue holes or something like that, yeah, that two-handed strip works really well, and I can move it quite fast. I do that for roosterfish and jack crevalle as well. And one bonus to the two-handed strip is you can't trout set with a two-handed strip. So I'm already here, hook them, drop the rod. It actually works pretty slick. It's not as much of a disaster as you think it's gonna be. But those are my tips for barracuda. I hope you have a great trip, and you take advantage of the opportunity to be able to have a barracuda pop up here and there, maybe with some of the quick tackle rig stuff. I know there's lots of other ways to rig up using that wire leader, but that's just one thing I find very helpful for people who want to make a quick change from a tarpon or a snook rig right to a barracuda with one little snip and a perfection loop. You can loop it on there. It works great.